I'll tell you a nice thing, which could potentially be a sort of leading indicator, right? Leading indicator of maybe good news is content's doing well that's about the game and not about the game being bad. Yeah. Isn't that a shock, Matt? Yeah. This hasn't happened in years.
There is a pretty substantial amount of quiet interest in World of Warcraft. You won't see people talking about it too much, but you'll see a lot of like kind of numbers will be slightly higher. That's the one thing. And that implies that the core World of Warcraft audience, the quiet one, the silent majority, who felt burned by Shadowlands, are at least willing to go, okay, you've got Alex Straz on the cover, I'll see what the crack is. Or it's been that long since they've been burned by Shadowlands, because that was, 2021 was when things got pretty bad with 9.1. It's been long enough that, it's been long enough that people are like, because, time heals all wounds.
How
people
much of our
are willing to give
fucking
another chance.
souls are left in this room from patch 9.1? I feel like I died several deaths during the coverage of that fucker. But yeah, it is interesting. And I think it's this thing, right, where YouTube videos just like ping pong around the algorithm in a way where, it almost reminds me of traditional YouTube advice, right? Which is all like, hey, find the current trend, the current keyword's doing well. What's that? All of America is obsessed with small storage containers? Do a storage container video. And just because the like latent level of search activity's there, it'll do super well. So with a bunch of this, what we sort of internally label as general interest World of Warcraft content, we're actually finding that it's catching on a bit. So I think that does mean that there are some aspects of this expansion that are perhaps resonating with, like, as you said, that kind of like silent majority of players. And that's always an interesting thing. The time where that's absolutely been the strongest for us. To be honest, the whole thing's went downhill since Legion in a way. And I don't mean that to hate in the game, but I remember, see this time during Legion?
Big.
Guess how many monthly views this channel was getting?
I feel like you've told me before. I want to say like 6.
7 million.
7. Yeah, I knew it was 6 or 7.
Now, right now, we're at like 1.4 million. And, and nobody in work, that 7 million, we were... I guess that was actually just me pumping videos out. That was insane.
You and Connell, right?
No, Connell joined, his first video was the Centenax farm of patch.
Oh, Legion Beta, yes.
Yeah. So, at that point in time, it was also terrible for my health. I basically just ground 20-hour days for a month straight and also switched my entire sleep schedule over to America time. And then for some reason, I played I got to level 86, 76. Oh, level caps. Well, you see, between all the squishes, I fucking forgot them all.
Legion was 90. No, it wasn't. Legion was 100.
That was 100, yeah. So I almost got there. I just remember alt-tabbing over to Mountain Blade Warband. I just played that for 3 hours and went back to it. It was weird.
No, Legion was 110.
It was 110, yeah. But anyway, it was this crazy time where you could just tell the latent interest in World of Warcraft was absolutely fucking gangbusters. It was insane because the marketing campaign for Legion had been so goddamn successful for Blizzard. And really, it has just diminished and diminished since then. And I don't think what we've got now is actually going to be larger than it was for Shadowlands. But I'm seeing us kind of, if it's like a curve, I'm seeing the curve start to change in that different, more healthy for the game direction. So I guess for the Blizzard developers, that's probably good news. Obviously, though, all it means is they've captured interest. You need to do more than that. You need to actually, secure those people as players by delivering a brilliant experience, which I guess some of which is what we're going to be talking about today. Super from Alex. The base game experience has been dramatically improved. Screw one-off throwaway features. WoW was going to die if they didn't massively update the base experience for new players and take an expansion to find their feet. That's the narrative. It's certainly what we believe. It seemingly is the narrative that Blizzard wants to project out there as well. I think that all makes sense because ultimately they don't have, some crazy new feature. But then the funny thing is, we all think we want a feature, not to do a whole, you think you do, but you don't. But do you remember when we saw War Funds? And islands are like, oh, look at this back-of-the-box feature. I can't fucking wait. Or covenants, or garrisons. It turns out it's those big back-of-the-box features that were kind of like big gambles that rarely ended up paying off. So it's a bit weird. It's almost like we're in this situation where it's got to be a sort of a boring success.
Yeah.
I mean that in a good way.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, those were ultimately makeup on a pig. In the weird sense of BFA was a nightmare to play in a lot of ways, and that's why, I mean, islands weren't exceptional anyway, but islands, especially when you look at how players engage them at the end of the expansion and engage them now, it's a little bit, not that many are engaging with them now, but, you know, in isolation, if you remove them from all the systems they were attached to, they weren't awful. In the same way Torghast isn't awful. The same way that you can tell they designed stuff when, hey, here's a design. Obviously, the islands went a wee bit skew-whiff because it ended up being, can you do this in 30 seconds with a gigapull?
Yeah.
Sure. But they had a lot of the actual kind of, a little bit of the effort put in to design packs and design a little interesting enough island that if you're like, okay, well, why is this small pack here? Oh, this tells a little tiny bit of a story. It's just that you weren't incentivized to pay attention to any of that.
It didn't fucking matter in the slightest.
Yeah, and that's the thing where where Dragonflight's going to run into a problem of, are people going to be trained that none of that shit matters and then just not pay attention to the world and then go, why is this the M plus and rating expansion again? What the fuck? That's one of the issues we're liable to run into because of players being trained that way, because they've been trained that way since Legion, effectively. Obviously, you could argue it's been trained that way since long before because of rewards always being the thing of it. And actually, there's an interesting part because I even saw a bit of a kerfuffle in FF with 625 and how ass Savage, which is obviously, you know, Savage ass is not quite as rewarding as regular ass. So people are kind of annoyed by that. And then there was a poll basically taken on, I think there were like 700, 800 votes when I saw it, but it was what compels you to do content. And it was like, for the challenge, not very many people said that.
Of course not.
For the sake of it, not very many people said that.
Of course not.
It was almost all either for glam or for titles and stuff.
Obviously.
And you go, well, if that's the case in a game that people talk about as not being quite as driven that way or driven as like gameplay focused as World of Warcraft, you can see how it's all like, oh yeah, people have been trained away from seeing like the actual design elements, just going, where's my fucking reward place?
Yeah, this is not coming home and, just playing a surf map in Counter-Strike Source for 2 hours for some fucking reason.
Yeah.
You know, we need a carrot. That's how us capital G's work, yes. Right? And I guess with this expansion, they do have quite a lot of tail and renown. Well, really just the reputations, right? So we've got quite a lot in all of that. I mean, the rest of it just is what it is, but I think broadly should be either the same quality or better, but with underlying things that fight with you a lot less, which will mean that it's better. But to what Alex said, the finding of the feat, this does mean when the next expansion comes around, I'm looking to see a big back-of-the-box feature or two. I'm looking for them to be well-considered, designed to last, and actually being really fucking good. And they need to be ways... this is what Blizzard needs to, I think, understand. There need to be ways for people to deepen their investment in the game. One of the reasons why I think player houses are like a good idea. And I mean, there's all these people that's like, oh, garrisons are houses. No, they're not, you fucking idiot. Think about houses for a second, please. Ugh, orthodoxy. But yeah, garrisons obviously were nothing like player housing. There was basically no customization. They just made it all, hey, what?
But archaeology.
Here's a tasting menu of gameplay systems. You get to have a few of them, right? Like, that's all the garrisons were. An actual good player housing is something where you can move the fucking wall. You can make a little place, and you can put a fireplace there, and put some shit in the wall, and, you kill a boss, and you can mount its head on your fucking mantelpiece. That's what player housing is. And the reason why player housing is good is because in the same way that people are like, oh, I killed the boss, and I got the mount. I got the head of the curve mount. Player housing, it's going to give you another thing, another way to reward a player, another way for a player to be more deeply entrenched within World of Warcraft. That's one of the things that makes MMOs sticky. It's both good and it's bad, right? Because you know it's a little bit of this like loss aversion thing where you're like, Yeah, but my character has 400 mounts and 8 million achievement points. I can't not play this game. Right? Like, the more that you allow somebody to be hyper giga invested in your game, the less likely they are to leave it. Therefore, rationally, what Blizzard needs is more vectors of deeper player investment, more ways to reward players. That's why I think player housing is the sort of thing that just makes sense, because you can give people, honestly, just more fucking rewards, more bing wahoos. They need to, as an example, radically make transmog better, open up more of it, get maybe some tintable sort of dyeable stuff. Really just every single way that you could, like, possibly have more, investment in a character. That's what they need to do. Because if WoW was a treadmill, right? It's just a fucking treadmill. Every season's the same fucking thing. Okay, we get to doing some new content, but, just get, you get onto the new treadmill the next season, and you're right back where you started. What do you get out of that? Well, maybe you get your Keystone Master. Maybe you get your ahead of the curve thing. So what they need is, if you have this kind of like base fucking treadmill of shit that you're doing in the MMO, there needs to be permanent shit that's like going to your character from that. So in the next expansion, they need to think about more permanent shit that's like going to your character. So that means Mythic Plus needs to have like radically better gearing that's more interesting visually. All that stuff. So I guess when I think about this expansion being the foundations, they really need to be very thoughtful with how they allow people to have a more deep investment in their character. 11.0.
They sure do. That's one of the many problems they have to solve. Because one of the other things about that idea of, because Alex talks about new players and the base experience for new players, boy, that's not very good. And it's very difficult to understand how not good it is if you're like a veteran player. I don't know how anyone would even begin to start playing World of Warcraft without without either an incredible desire to play it for some reason, because you'll be willing to jump over a massive hoop, or climb a great mountain if there's like a cultural reason for it. So if you're like, oh well, this is the biggest game on the planet, of course I'm going to learn this. That's a kind of the thing where people will get over how much there is to learn in League of Legends or how much there is to learn in Valorant to play it. But for World of Warcraft, you need to have like the cultural weight there, and you need to make it reasonably easy to understand and enjoyable from the get-go. Whereas at the minute, it's Excel Reach isn't bad, and the talent system should theoretically help with this, but it is a complete and utter nightmare.
Yeah.
So they have a hell of a lot of work to do, but I think the important part is getting to the end of getting to the core player base. Don't all leave immediately, because I think you have to do your most dedicated fans the most justice first, because they're the ones who you don't literally owe them because they're just a company, right? Just product and consumers, but you do kind of owe them in that sense of they've been the most devoted. They're going to be the ones who will like pay the dividends back in terms of telling other people and being evangelical about your game. So they need to fix that core base experience first, and then work in, oh hey, new players now. Oh hey, then we can deepen relationships with existing players beyond keeping them actually on board in the first place. Yeah. And that's where Dragonflight seems to be, in the lack of bullshit systems, largely speaking, and the fact that most of the like class favorite stuff has been relatively actually allowed for, and the fact that it also is new and fresh with Dragon Riding. It's like they're definitely on a good step. Yeah, because Dragon Riding, I didn't, in all the beta so far, I never bothered going for Dragon Riding glyphs until Nikki was talking to me about it, and I was like, I'll go find some glyphs. And I was like, I just had this smile on my face, and I was like,
man's getting his fucking Mario stars.
Yes. I was like, oh, hang on. And it's not like it was hard, right? Because Dragon Riding is way too strong, which is something I'll maybe get into later, about the level design and how there is fucking none of it in the traditional sense, or in the sense that I expected. But you just fly around, and flying is fun, and you get your glyphs, and then you get your slightly better flying, and then you get the next glyph faster, even if it's further away and higher. And it's just like really good. It's not going to last very long for players if they just go, I'm going to get all the glyphs right away. But if you actually go exploring and try to find them yourself, it is really quite satisfying. And I was just like, Blizzard made a video game.
Yeah,
They haven't done that since 2016 when they made Overwatch. Because Overwatch 2 is not a video game. Overwatch 2 is Overwatch 1 bastardized. Some people like it more, some people don't. But, you know,
I'm in the camp of liking it more.
World of Warcraft
How's product?
World of Warcraft hasn't much been a video game. It's been World of Warcraft and its expansions. It's not been a video game. And one of the things I think about class design, which I'll talk about a little bit later because I've got the feedback and is Dragonflight ready stuff to go through. A lot of the times, no one at World of Warcraft has considered World of Warcraft a video game. They consider it World of Warcraft, an MMO experience, not a fucking video game.
Yeah.
But Dragon Redding's the first time I've played World of Warcraft and went, oh, this is a game.
Yeah, designer actually had to sit down and like make something feel like fun second to second, which is crazy. And as for the power thing, I think that because they know how fucking insane quite a lot of WoW players are, where there's like, this is not no clip. This is, you've nerfed me and I'm really angry. And they're just like, oh, please, we're just trying to make a fun game for fuck's sake. Could you guys stop thinking about only efficiency? I think they then really felt like they had to go pretty generous on the power of dragon riding. I think they basically realized that they need to almost bribe players with making it super fast and super powerful, because if they didn't, then the MMO mono gamers who don't actually play other video games and probably don't really know what a fun game is if it, hit them in the face, or else they, mauled out. You know the people like on, I don't know, WoW Twitter who just get like absolutely ungodly irate at like the most stupid shit.
Oh, yeah. There's an example of that where I remember a Dakar was like, fuck, these people need their brains checked, because it was something with the dragon riding change, and it was the Skyward Descent momentum cap or something.
That was the most stupid fucking shit,
and
dude.
It's like, Skyward Descent it's still way too strong. You can still just basically completely destroy dragon riding if you know how to use it correctly, even after the change. But it's like, man, they nerfed this so it's slightly harder because it needs to be more fun to actually play. It needs to be slightly more challenging and also make more sense than the established rules of what you expect from momentum and gliding and stuff.
It was broken. It was like literally a bug. It was a bug that gave you way too much verticality, right? And it was just way too powerful. And anyone with half a fucking brain cell looking at the game would know this is obviously not intended. This completely breaks the fantasy of flapping around on the wings of a dragon. And then, it gets fixed and people are just like, fun place! Fun place! We are hungry!
Yeah.
You have ruined our game!
But then there's a whole thing about that where this is the problem with public testing in general. You cannot nerf anything.
Yeah, because people don't understand that it's designing a fucking game.
No. They probably understand that somewhere, right? But the point is, and this is going to make me sound like an asshole, but people are really fucking stupid. People are very emotionally driven, is what I probably should say. People are very emotionally driven, and a nerf is a nerf is a nerf. It doesn't matter. You can look at the recent ret changes for that, right? Everyone's like, oh my god, ret's been nerfed so hard. And I know ret players have a whole ton of problems, and they're like, a lot of them are super justified. They need to sort that out like in 10.1, or they're absolute fucking morons. But massive nerfs to damage. And like everyone's going like, you're ruining ret. Everyone's going, did you fucking see how much damage they were doing? This is actual tuning. This is them doing their job. They're taking it from, this would be so busted it wouldn't be fun, to this is now within the realms of actually reasonably designed.
So, you know the way that
a nerf is a nerf is a nerf
in the whole world is now like a 3-word slogan. Like, let's see, build back better. Brace for Boris.
Boris or bust.
Boris is back. Ready for Rishi. Pagan for Penny. Whatever the fuck.
What was it you said earlier? Soggy for Sunak?
Soggy for Sunak. Let's go. But like it's the same reason. Like it just, it's like one quanta can be ingested at one time. And that's it. Nothing more. Yeah. It's one of those things, like whenever public testing happens, you sometimes get issues, and it's a little bit weird.
Taxi for trust is very good.
Taxi for trust.
But yeah, like a nerf is a nerf is a nerf. It doesn't matter how good something is, a nerf is a nerf. It is going to feel worse comparatively, because humans are beasts of comparison. We go, this is now less, that makes us angry. Or like a fair emotional reaction, but that's the problem with public testing where you're like, are players going to be anchored to the best it was during that beta? Yes. This is where you're going to have awful experiences, or people go, I liked it better in beta. You're like, that's kind of the problem you get. You're probably safer to start things off shit and then slightly improve.
So here is an example from my Legion testing. And because it was fun, I remember it. You could basically, on Fury Warrior, this is a point in time in Legion beta, where you could have the most insane set of abilities. You could just pull 30 mobs and fucking delete them. It was so fun. It was also busted.
Yeah.
So whenever Blizzard fixed it, I didn't just go, oh, nerf! I've been nerfed! The bastards have nerfed me! Kill them! No, I was like, oh yeah, well that was, I mean, it was fun while it lasted, but also it was broken as shit. So yeah, of course it's not going to make it live. I'm glad I did the busted thing in beta because it was a bit of crack. But, you know.
It's like printing money.
Big things. Across time instead of small things right now on Twitter.
Yeah, big things, no thoughts.
Big things, no thoughts.
Yeah. Yeah, so Zach's like, is there a superior alternative to public testing? And then multiple people may go private testing. I'm like, yeah, that is the version where you don't have people who are in the public who are also going to play your game are going to have that like experience of this is worse now. And the anecdote I always like to use is Darkest Dungeon, where in Darkest Dungeon Early Access, that game did not have corpses that existed and blocked your path. And then the designers were like, this would be a really cool mechanic. We see how this can fit into like all of our gameplay. And we're really we love this to pieces. It's going to be great. And what that did was, because it was literally designed to be an annoying mechanic that made fights harder, everyone who's playing Early Access was like, this fucking sucks. This is the worst decision you've ever made, you absolute morons. What the fuck is this? And then they were like, you know, God bless them for having the stones to go, no, fuck you players, you're literally wrong. However, you can turn it off in the options if you want to be little babies, but we think this mechanic works. And then people who played the game fresh were like, this mechanic's really sick. And it adds a lot to think about in terms of how we approach a fight. That's really good. But that's an example of that where it's like, that was a good thing. But players thought it was a bad thing because it made their experience worse.
Game design via absolute democracy.
Yeah.
Open up the World of Warcraft app and cast your vote.
Yeah, that's what we call giving beta invites to everyone because you're using your beta as a marketing wave. And then you have certain people on certain class forums posting a load of absolute bullshit and entirely just wanting to make sure their class is the best, not make sure their class is fair or balanced or good or fun. They want it to be their best because they aren't good testers, because public testing can be bad based on quality of testing. And that's one of the reasons why World of Warcraft has problems with feedback, because they have too much of it. There are so many thousands of posts and forums, and not all of them are good. Some of them are absolutely fantastic, but a lot of them aren't very good. Unfortunate, but that's where we're at.